You never expect the love of your life to show up dressed in black slacks and driving your dad's Cadillac. But life doesn't ask for permission when it's about to change everything. My name is Claire Hamilton. I'm 27 years old, and this is the story I've never told anyone. Until now, I was raised in Charleston, South Carolina, in a family where last names mattered more than first impressions, where being a Hamilton came with traditions, responsibilities, and expectations I never really asked for. My dad is a prominent attorney. My mom runs the charity circuit and gives speeches about Southern elegance. And I was raised to smile politely, dress perfectly, and eventually marry someone who matched. The family, I followed every rule until he showed up. It was early May, the azaleas were blooming, the humidity was already unbearable, and my older brother, Carter, was flying home from California for a few weeks. My dad, being my dad, wanted things just right, so he hired a full-time driver to take care of the family for the summer. His name was Michael Rivera. I remember the first time I saw him. He was leaning against a black Escalade outside our front gate, wearing a crisp white shirt, sleeves rolled up just enough to show his forearms. But what I noticed first were his eyes. Green, but not just green. This rare kind of mossy, stormy green that felt like secrets waiting to be told. Eyes that looked like they didn't belong in my world, but somehow saw through all of it. He looked up and smiled. I smiled back, just for a second, because I knew exactly who he was, and worse, I knew exactly who I was supposed to be. Michael opened the door for me with a soft, "Miss Hamilton," and I thanked him, pretending not to feel the way my heart skipped like a skip stone on water. At first, our interactions were brief, polite, distant. He drove, I rode. That was the dynamic. But over time, it changed. There was something in the way he adjusted the rearview mirror just a little too long, and how he knew to play the kind of music that made the silence between us feel warm. And then one night, I'll never forget it, he picked me up from a charity dinner my mother had insisted I attend. It started to rain, hard, that southern kind of storm that turns the sky dark and the air heavy. The windshield wipers couldn't keep up, and out of nowhere, Michael said, quietly, "Ever feel like you're driving through someone else's life and suddenly take the wrong turn into your own?" I looked at him through the mirror, and in that exact moment, I realized I was falling for the man driving my father's car. I knew it was wrong. I knew it would cause hell. But the truth is, you don't choose the moment love finds you. And when it does, it doesn't ask if it's a good time. It just happens. And that's how it started. Asterisk, if this story is stirring something in your heart, hit the like button. It helps more than you know, and it tells me you want to hear more true stories like this one. Subscribe and turn on the bell so you don't miss what's coming next. And if you know someone who's falling in love when they shouldn't, share this. Sometimes a simple story can shift someone's entire day. Thanks for being here and for listening. With your heart now, let me tell you what happened next. After that night in the rain, I couldn't stop thinking about Michael. Not just in that silly crush kind of way, but in the way where his silence filled my head louder than anyone's words ever had. The way I started waiting for the sound of the car pulling up. The way my hands would shake just a little when I touched the door handle and saw him through the window. There was something between us. Unspoken, undeniable. But also impossible. Michael never crossed a line, never made a move. But there was something in his quiet, the kind of quiet that held back a storm. He started asking me questions, real ones, not where to or what time should I wait. One afternoon, he asked, "What would you do if you didn't have to do what everyone expects of you?" I didn't have an answer. No one had ever asked me that. No one had cared enough to even wonder what I might want outside the Hamilton box. I stared out the window, thinking, and for the first time, I realized how empty my life had been. Before he showed up, a few days later, I had to go pick up a donation from an art gallery downtown. Afterward, I asked him to take a detour to Folly Beach just to see the ocean. It was sunset, the golden kind that only happens on the South Carolina coast. We didn't even get out of the car, just sat there, watching the waves from the overlook. I had kicked my heels off. My feet were cold under me in the back seat. Michael sat still in the driver's seat, one hand on the wheel, the other resting on his thigh. And then he turned. Slowly. Our eyes met through the gap in the seats, over the space that had felt safe until it didn't anymore. And in that look, there was everything: longing, restraint, a question neither of us dared ask out loud. My breath caught. I didn't say a word. I didn't need to, because Michael just whispered, "Claire, if I say what I'm thinking, I can't take it back." And I, with my heart pounding, whispered back, "Then say it." But he didn't. He turned forward again, took a breath, and drove me home in silence. But from that night on, nothing between us was the same. After that afternoon at Folly Beach, everything changed. Michael remained professional, always on time, always composed. But I knew that silence now, and I could feel, with every part of me, that he was feeling exactly what I was. It was the way he gripped the steering wheel a little tighter when I got in, the way he avoided the rearview mirror, because if our eyes met for more than 2 seconds, we'd both lose control. I started making up excuses to go out, errands that didn't need running, appointments that didn't exist, anything, just to get in that car, sit in the back seat, and have 30 quiet minutes where the world finally made sense, because he was there one day. We went to Mount Pleasant to pick up a package for my mother. It was one of those sleepy mornings, the kind where even the sky looks tired. On the way back, I kicked off my heels, tucked my feet under me, and started telling Michael about my childhood, how I hated piano lessons, how I secretly wanted to do theater. But my father thought it was a waste of time. He just listened, but not like other people. He listened with his heart. At a red light, he turned slowly and looked at me directly, and he said, "You don't deserve to live in a cage, Claire." My throat tightened. Sometimes I feel like a bird that doesn't remember how to fly. Then someone needs to remind you your wings are still there. I closed my eyes for a second, lowered my head, because if I looked at him even a moment longer, I would have cried, not from sadness, from relief. Because for the first time in my life, someone truly saw me. That night at dinner, my mom made a comment in that casual voice that only someone who knows you can decode. "Michael's efficient, but he's been checking the rear view mirror a bit too often. Be mindful, Claire." I smiled, pretended, but inside, panic rose like wildfire. They were noticing. The next week, Michael pulled away. He grew colder, more formal. He called me Miss Hamilton again, parked farther from the front door, hardly looked at me. And that hurt more than any words ever could. But every now and then, he slipped. Like the day his hand brushed mine when helping me out of the car. It was brief, but it was real, and our eyes met, and I knew he was still fighting it. But there comes a point when fighting it just doesn't make sense anymore. And I could feel it. That moment was getting closer, closer. It was just a regular Tuesday, or at least it seemed like one. I had gone to an art gallery on King Street to pick up a painting my mom had restored. Michael drove me, like always, on the way back. I asked if we could stop at Battery Park, the one with the old oaks and benches facing the water. It was warm, but the breeze off the Ashley River was gentle, and the sky looked like it had been painted in soft golds and purples. We sat on a stone bench, away from the main path. Michael took off his jacket, ran a hand through his hair, and stared at the water. And me, I couldn't stop staring at him. And in that quiet moment, truth started to rise. "Are you okay?" I asked softly. He didn't answer right away. He took a breath. Then he turned, slowly, and said, "I don't think I can pretend anymore. Not about this." My heart stuttered. "I can't either," I whispered, locking eyes with him. Time stood still. He reached out, not boldly, carefully, like asking permission with his fingers. He touched my hand, and right then, every expectation, every rule, every "you can't" fell away. All that was left was him. We sat there, our fingers gently intertwined, saying nothing. Then he leaned in, not fast, not careless, inches at a time. His breath mingled with mine, his lips almost touching. But then, footsteps. Laughter. Too. Women jogging with their dogs passed by, just feet away from us. We pulled apart quickly. Silence. The moment was gone. But the fire it left behind, it only burned brighter. After that almost kiss. I couldn't sleep, not because I was scared of what we were doing, but because for the first time, I felt alive. Every rule I'd lived by, every smile I'd practiced, every polite nod I'd given at garden parties and brunches, suddenly felt small, shallow. Because what I felt for Michael, it was real, raw, and far too big to hide in the backseat of a Cadillac. I avoided my parents that week. I told them I wasn't feeling well, skipped dinners, stayed in my room with the lights dimmed just so I didn't have to face their eyes, or the questions I knew were coming. But I couldn't avoid him. That Friday, we had to drive out to Savannah to drop off some documents for my father. It was a long ride, over 2 hours each way, and the tension, it filled every inch of that car. Neither of us spoke for the first 30 minutes. The radio played low jazz, the kind that doesn't say much but carries 1,000 feelings. Then, somewhere just past the state line, he finally broke the silence. "Claire, this can't happen." My chest tightened. Then why does it feel like it already is? He looked at me through the mirror. Those green eyes, that familiar ache in my throat returned. The one that always showed up when I was about to cry, but refused to. "Because you're not like them," he said. "You don't look at me like I'm invisible." My voice shook. "You're not invisible to me. You're the only person who's ever really seen me." He pulled over, right there, on the side of a quiet road lined with Spanish moss and sunlight. The car idled. We sat in silence. And then, without a word, he reached for my hand. No games, no hesitation. And I let him, because every cell in my body had been waiting for that moment. His thumb traced slow circles on the back of my hand, and I swear I could feel it in my spine. It wasn't just about chemistry anymore. This was something else, something sacred, something we couldn't walk away from. But before we could say anything more, his phone buzzed. My father, he answered quickly, voice calm, professional, like nothing was happening. And I realized in that moment, this was the tightrope we were walking, one step too far, and everything would come crashing down. But still, I wasn't ready to let go. And from the way Michael looked at me when he hung up, neither was he. After that afternoon on the side of the road, something between us broke wide open. We didn't talk about what it meant. We didn't dare. But from then on, every look lingered longer. Every Miss Hamilton from his lips carried a tremble of something more. And every mile we drove together felt like a countdown to the moment we couldn't hide anymore. The house felt heavier, not because of my family, but because I was now hiding the one thing I couldn't stop thinking about. I found excuses to be in the car, to ride with him to pick up groceries, to drop off flowers at my mother's friend's house, to breathe in that quiet space that belonged only to us. One morning, on the way back from downtown, I dared to reach forward from the backseat and touch his shoulder, just lightly, as he parked in front of the house. He froze. I thought I had pushed too far, but then he turned, and the look in his eyes, it wasn't fear, it was longing. "Claire, I need to tell you something," he said quietly. My heart jumped. I nodded. Before I started working here, I was engaged. The air around me shifted. It didn't end well. She left. No explanation. Just disappeared one day. He didn't cry, but I saw the pain in his jaw, the way he clenched it to keep control. For a while, I stopped believing in anything that felt good. I just worked, drove, stayed quiet, He looked at me through the mirror again. And tell you, I wanted to say something, anything, but my throat felt to full. So I just whispered, "You don't have to run anymore." And he smiled, a soft, tired smile, the kind someone gives when they're finally letting go of something heavy. But even as we sat there in silence, heart speaking what words couldn't, I felt it, a shift. That feeling when the tide changes, even before the water moves, and I didn't know it yet. But someone was watching. For days after Michael told me about his past, I felt closer to him than ever. It wasn't just the tension anymore. The stolen glances or the touches we tried to pass off as accidental. Now there was trust, now there was truth, and that was far more dangerous. I remember one morning, it was quiet, the sky still pale with the last colors of dawn. I walked out early just to catch him before my parents woke up. He was wiping down the windshield, not expecting me yet. When he saw me, his whole face changed. Just that, no words. Only a look that said I missed you without needing to speak. I handed him a coffee. "You like it black, right?" He smiled, took it gently, and that smile stayed with me the rest of the day. But that night, something shifted. During dinner, my father said it casually. "Has Michael seemed distracted lately?" My fork froze halfway to my mouth. "I don't think so," I answered. Too fast. My mother gave one of her looks, the kind that said, "You're hiding something, and I see you." The air in the room changed. The next morning, I noticed something strange. There was a silver SUV parked across from the house. It wasn't one of the neighbors. I knew that. I knew every car on that street like the back of my hand. Michael noticed it too. He didn't say anything, but I saw the stiffness in his shoulders, the way his eyes flicked toward it again and again as we drove. And then, it started happening more often. The same car, sometimes on the other side of town. Once near the library, another time near the Battery, parked 2 blocks away from where we sat under the same oak tree from before. We didn't say anything, but we knew someone was watching, someone who didn't want this story to keep unfolding. Still, we couldn't stop, because that's the thing about real love. It doesn't wait for permission. It just is. So we kept meeting, kept whispering truths into the spaces no one else could see. And even though a storm was clearly forming on the horizon, I wasn't afraid. Not with him by my side. It was a Wednesday, late afternoon. One of those warm Charleston days where the air feels thick with stories waiting to unfold. Michael had just dropped me off after taking my mother to a foundation luncheon. I was supposed to stay in for the evening, rest, as she put it. But my heart didn't want rest, it wanted him. So I sent a message. Short, simple, meet me at the back parking lot of the old bookstore on King Street, 8 p.m. He didn't reply, but he didn't need to. At 8:01, he was there. He had changed. Not the uniform, just a navy t-shirt and jeans. I'd never seen him like that, and God, he looked good. I didn't speak, just opened the passenger door and got in. We didn't say where we were going. He drove in silence, both of us holding our breath like teenagers breaking curfew. He stopped near the water, just outside the city, a quiet pier, long forgotten by tourists. We sat on the hood of his car, looking at the dark waves shimmer into the moonlight. I turned to him. "You didn't have to come." He looked at me, serious. I never had a choice. And that was it. Our lips met. Finally. It wasn't rushed. It wasn't dramatic. It was gentle and slow and full of every word we hadn't dared to say out loud. When we pulled away, I saw it in his face. That look that says, this is no longer just a risk, it's a promise. We sat in silence, hand in hand, our bodies close enough to feel every heartbeat. But as we got back into the car, ready to return before anyone noticed, headlights flashed from the street behind. A car watching. No license plate visible. No one stepped out. Just the engine running. Michael saw it. I saw it. Whoever was following us now knew. My chest tightened. Not because of fear, but because for the first time, it wasn't just our secret anymore. It had a witness. And witnesses, they have power. Asterisk the next morning, I knew something had changed. Not in Michael, not in me, but in the house. The way the maid looked at me when I came down for breakfast. The way my father's assistant asked, to casually, if Michael had driven me anywhere unusual the day before. And the SUV, it wasn't parked across the street anymore. It was closer now, brazen, like whoever was watching had stopped pretending they weren't. Michael avoided my gaze during our morning errands. He was distant, careful. I hated it. By the time we got home, my heart was pounding. I stepped out of the car and paused. Are you okay? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. He didn't answer, just nodded, eyes on the road ahead, not on me. I turned to walk inside, and just as I reached the steps, I heard him say, softly, they know. My breath caught. I turned back. What are you going to do? He looked at me for the first time that day. And what I saw in his eyes wasn't fear. It was heartbreak. Whatever protects you. I shook my head. That's not your decision. But we both knew it was already too late. That night, as I stood in the hallway, I overheard it. My parents whispering behind closed doors, words like inappropriate, reputation, and dismissal floated through the space like poison in the air. I backed away, heart racing, breath shallow. They were talking about him, and I knew if I didn't do something, he'd be gone, just like that. But what could I do? I was Claire Hamilton, daughter of one of the most traditional families in Charleston, and he was the man they hired to drive me from place to place, who ended up stealing my heart instead. I sat on the edge of my bed that night, staring at my reflection. My hands were shaking, and then I reached for my phone. No words, no explanation. Just a message. Meet me tomorrow. Same place. I won't let them end this. Because no matter what they said, no matter how loudly the world whispered behind our backs, I knew what I felt, and I wasn't ready to give up on it. Not yet. We met again the next night. Same spot. Same silence between us. But everything felt heavier, like the air knew it was carrying something sacred and fragile. Michael was already there when I arrived, leaning against his car, arms crossed, eyes on the horizon like he was afraid to look at me too soon. But when he did, I felt it again. That pull, that ache that said, we don't have forever, so let this moment matter. I walked to him slowly, afraid that if I rushed, the moment would break. He opened the door. We got in. He didn't start the engine, just sat there, looking at me, letting the silence speak first. They're going to fire you, I whispered. He nodded. I know, and you're just going to let them. He looked down, his jaw tense. Claire, if I fight this, it makes it worse for you. It ruins your name, your life. What about our life? His eyes met mine again, and this time, there was no hiding. Just a man who loved me and didn't know how to save us. I reached for his hand. Come away with me. He froze. Claire, I mean it. I'll leave all of this behind. The house, the expectations, the foundation galas. None of it means anything without you. He didn't speak, but his hand tightened around mine. Then he leaned in, closer than ever, and kissed me. Not like before. This time, it wasn't about longing. It was about belonging. His hands cupped my face as mine tangled in his shirt. We kissed like the world was ending, because for us, part of it was, when we pulled apart, he rested his forehead against mine. I've never loved anyone like this, he said, but I don't want you to lose everything. I'm not losing anything, I whispered. I'm choosing. He looked at me like I had just rewritten every law of the universe. And in that car, with the soft hum of the streetlights and the scent of summer thick in the air, we made a promise. One more week. That's all we had. Then we'd figure it out. Leave, stay, run, fight. But together, because love like that doesn't come twice. And when it does, you don't let it go. Not for anyone. Not even for everything. Asterisk the morning after that kiss, I woke up with a feeling I couldn't name. Not fear. Not exactly. More like something precious slipping through my fingers before I could hold it tight. Enough, I didn't see Michael that day. Or the next, I asked my father's assistant where he was. She shrugged, didn't show up for his shift. Didn't call. That wasn't him. Michael was many things. Stubborn, quiet, sometimes too. Careful, but never careless. I called. No answer. I texted. Nothing. By the third day, my heart had turned into a knot I couldn't untangle. Then I found the envelope, slipped under the door of the guest house where he used to stay. Just my name, Claire, in his handwriting. My hand shook as I opened it. It wasn't long, just a few lines. I'm sorry. I thought I could do this, be with you and protect you. But I was wrong. I don't belong in your world. You deserve someone who does. Please don't look for me. Forget me if you can. Michael, I dropped to the floor. Tears poured from my eyes before I could stop them. None of it made sense. None of it sounded like him. Unless someone had forced him. My father, maybe even worse, someone from his past. That engagement, that woman who vanished. I tried to breathe, but the air didn't feel real. I went to my room, locked the door, and stayed there for 2 days. Didn't eat, didn't speak. I replayed every second we had shared, every look, every word, every promise. He wouldn't walk away. Not like that. Not without a fight. Not without at least saying goodbye. Unless he thought that was the only way to keep me safe. And then I got mad. Not at him. At whoever decided that our love, something so pure, so real, wasn't allowed to exist. I took the letter, pressed it to my heart, and whispered, "You don't get to erase us, Michael. I won't let them." But I didn't know where he was, or if he would ever come back. Asterisk, after I read that letter for the 10th time, something in me snapped. No more tears, no more silence. I needed answers. Because love like that doesn't just vanish. I started with a guest house. I waited until my parents left for a charity auction, then crossed the back garden and picked the lock with a hairpin, like I used to do when I was 13 and bored. Everything was still there. His jacket, his coffee mug, even the book he'd been reading. Still open, face down, like he'd just stepped out for a moment. But he hadn't. He was gone. I checked drawers, closets, even under the bed. Then I found it, in the wastebasket, a torn envelope with my father's name on it. I pulled the pieces together and read it. My father had written him, telling him he knew about us, telling him he could either leave quietly or face consequences that would ruin more than just your employment. I felt sick. I took a picture of the letter. I didn't even know why. Maybe to prove to myself that I wasn't crazy, that this wasn't just in my head, that someone had stolen our future. I ran to my mother's study, opened her laptop, and searched Michael's name in her email. I wasn't proud of it. But love doesn't care about rules. I found one thread, flagged, in red. It was from an investigator. My parents had hired someone to follow him. To dig into his past, to look for anything they could use. And they found nothing, because there was nothing to find. No record, no crime, no scandal. Just a man with a heart big enough to love me, and the decency to walk away when they forced him. 2. I stared at the screen, and something shifted in me. This wasn't just about heartbreak anymore. It was about taking back what was ours. That night, I packed a bag. I left a note for my parents. You tried to control the story, but I know the truth now. I'm going to find him. You'll hear from me when I do. Because love like that, it doesn't just disappear. It gets quiet for a while, but it never dies. It took me for days to find him, 4 days of driving back roads, calling numbers I barely remembered, asking people who only half recognized his name, until finally, a man at a mechanic's shop just outside Asheville looked at me carefully and said, "Tall guy, quiet, green eyes. Yeah, he's been helping out in the back. Doesn't say much." My knees went weak. I parked behind the shop and waited until sunset. I wasn't ready yet. Not until I saw him first. And there he was, wiping grease off his hands, stood clinging to his skin. A look in his eyes I'd never seen before. Not tired, not angry, emptied up. My heart cracked all over again. I stepped out of the car and just stood there. He turned and froze. His eyes locked with mine. Neither of us moved. Then, slowly, he walked over. "Claire, what are you doing here?" I didn't answer, not with words. I pulled out my phone, showed him the photo of my father's letter. His face changed, shock, pain, and then something darker, guilt. "So it was true," I said. "They threatened you." He looked away. "They said they'd hurt you, that they'd take away everything. I thought leaving was the only way to keep you safe. You didn't even say goodbye," I whispered. His voice cracked. "I didn't think I could survive seeing your face and still walk away." I felt the tears fall. Hot, angry, needed. "You didn't have to walk away, Michael. You could have fought with me, for me. I didn't think I was worth fighting for." That broke me, because I realized the world hadn't defeated him. He had died. So I stepped closer, took his hands in mine. "You are worth everything, every risk, every scandal, every mile I drove to find you." He looked at me like he was seeing sunlight for the first time in weeks. And then he pulled me into his arms, held me like I was the only thing tethering him to this world. We didn't kiss. Not yet. That would come later. First, we had to learn how to breathe again, together. We sat in silence for what felt like hours. Michael kept looking down at his hands, like they still belonged to someone else, someone lost. I didn't rush him. I just sat beside him on the hood of his truck, the mountains behind us glowing gold with the sunset. Finally, he spoke. "Claire, if you go back now, they'll forgive you. Say it was just a phase. Blame it on me." I laughed softly. "You think I care about forgiveness from people who blackmailed the man I love?" He turned sharply toward me, his eyes wide. "Say that again." I looked him straight in the eyes. "I love you. I never stopped." His breath caught. He reached for me like it was the first time. Unsure, afraid, desperate. "You don't know what a life with me would look like. I don't have much. No family name, no trust fund, no foundation galas." I smiled. "Good, because I'm done with that life." He blinked. "What?" I called a friend in New York. She's opening a design studio. Said she'd give me a shot if I want it. I'm leaving Charleston. "You'd leave everything?" "It wasn't everything. You are." The silence that followed was heavy and full of light at the same time. He stepped forward, put both hands on my face, and kissed me. This time, it wasn't goodbye. It wasn't stolen. It was real. A kiss that meant we survived. That night, we packed his things into my car. We didn't tell anyone. No letters, no long explanations, just two people choosing each other in a world that told them not to. And when we pulled out of that small town mechanic's lot and into the dark highway, I reached over, laced my fingers with his, and said, "This isn't the end. It's our beginning." It's been 11 months since we left Charleston. Since we drove through the night with nothing but 2 bags, a half tank of gas, and each other. We moved into a small apartment in Brooklyn. Nothing fancy. Creaky floors, a view of a brick wall, and a radiator that hisses like it's trying to whisper secrets. But it's ours. Michael started working at a garage 3 blocks away. He comes home with oil on his hands and the smell of freedom in his clothes. I got the job at the design studio. I make less money than I ever did, and I've never been so full. Some nights we sit on the fire escape, sharing a cheap bottle of wine, and talk about everything we've lost. But more than that, we talk about everything we've found. We found honesty. We found peace. We found love that didn't need approval, only courage. We don't hide anymore. Sometimes, when we're walking hand in hand through the park, I still catch strangers looking at us, and I smile, because they don't know what it took to get here. But we do. He proposed last week. It wasn't dramatic. No ring hidden in dessert. Just the 2 of us, slow dancing in the living room to a scratch jazz record. He whispered it against my hair. "Let's make this forever." And I whispered back, We already did. We're getting married next spring. Nothing big, just friends, some flowers, and a promise, a real one. Because I know now, love doesn't need permission. It needs truth and choice. And when you choose it, fully, bravely, wildly, it stays. So, if you've listened to all of this, if your heart has made it to the end with mine, I want to ask you, do you believe that when love is real, it always finds a way? Or do you think destiny only helps those who risk everything for it? Because I know what I believe. We were happy with the choice we made because when love is real, it never ends.